for Book of Experts TV.
Topics you love.
Experts you trust.
Friction-free referrals.
Tried,
tested,
Trusted.
This is Book of Experts, brought to you by salesman.me.
Hello, Book of Experts members. We are so excited. I hope you had a wonderful Easter and Passover and all of the spring holidays. We're so excited to be here today. The topic that we're going to be talking about is very dear to my heart. As a happily married woman with 3 boys, we are going to be talking about mature masculinity. We're going to talk about what it is and what it isn't. And I am hosting today from my childhood bedroom surrounded by pink Care Bears. So I think the dichotomy is just going to be a really beautiful conversation as 2 women are going to be talking about masculinity. And I think it's going to be really important. So whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, today's conversation is relevant to all of us. And as we start changing this paradigm of how we think about masculinity, everything in our culture gets to shift as well. I'm really excited to introduce you to today's expert. Amy got 2 graduate degrees, a JD and an MBA, and she flourished in a 20-year corporate career, primarily in male-dominated industries. Then she got interested in this coaching and consulting, female empowerment movement, and how do you have feminine form of leadership? But what she kept hearing over and over again is, where is this for men? Men need this too. And so after Warrior Core was born. So you can check her out, thewarriorcore.com. Amy now helps men shed the cultural conditioning of what a man is supposed to be and help them determine who they want to be, independent of those constraints. Please welcome Amy Bliss. We're so excited to have you today.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hello. So as I mentioned, this topic is very near and dear to my heart because I dearly love the men in my life. And like you, I'm in this women empowerment movement and space. And I absolutely am right there with you saying, like, why can't we have this for our men? So as we dive into this, I would love to hear just a little bit of your context. What was the story that really led you for this to be on your heart, to empower men to take ownership of what this means?
Yeah, thank you. So when I left the corporate career, like you said, I started working with one of my best friends who had been in the female empowerment space and the feminine form of leadership space for quite a while. My hair, sorry, I get this behind me. And so I left my job to work with her, really kind of get her business to the next level. And like you said, the whole time there's this voice in the back of my head of like, where is this for men? Men need this too. And so I really started diving into the conditioning of men. And it's interesting because we've really given women permission to break free of the constraints.
Absolutely.
So for the conditioning of women is largely like, keep it down. You're too emotional, you're too loud, you're too this, you're too that, keep it small, play smaller. And we've really like told women, no, like you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want to be. And I think that I don't want to say it was easier, but it was more obvious, the conditioning of women. I think because we were relegated to a corner and told not to come out of that corner. Like, you couldn't, the whole glass ceiling and all of that. But from men, this definition, this idea that we have about what it means to be a man, what a man is supposed to be, what masculinity means. One has been, I call it stagnant. We really haven't shifted our definition of masculinity or what it means to be a man for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's so pervasive. And it's like just under the surface where it's not like this, you're not allowed to have this job. It's this, it's much more subtle. And so I think most people, and whether you're male bodied or not, really don't have any idea of how conditioned men are. And that's the exercise I want to take everybody through. Is it's really eye-opening to see how conditioned men really are and women are to what a man is supposed to be.
And I want to highlight, because we're going to go into your exercise and really unpack this whole paradigm of masculinity. But I would love to hear kind of why is this so important to you personally and to the
Yeah.
clients that you work with? Like, what is possible when we start questioning this paradigm?
Yeah. So one of the things that has come up for me as I went into the female empowerment space and I saw other women is this idea of if women evolve, and when I say evolve, I mean shed the conditioning, be who you are as an individual, as a human. If we do that and men don't, then there becomes this big imbalance between just where we are and how we're facing the world. And what I started realizing as I was going through the work on, doing my own inner work is I want to I want to be in company of the same people, of people that are thinking and feeling the way I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I want that man that is emotionally intelligent, that
Mhm.
can express himself in that way, that can be present, and just all of those yummy things, and
Mhm.
that are awake. I mean, I do call.
Right.
I feel like the people that have started down this path are like waking up, and everybody else is
Mhm.
asleep and just kind of moving through life in the way we've been told we're supposed to do it. And I want to
Mhm.
people that are alive and awake and questioning things. Those are the people
Mhm.
I want to spend time with. Yeah,
Yeah, I love it. Scott Smith says masculinity is both essential and awesome. And I think you're absolutely right.
absolutely.
And we just have to
Yes.
figure out, what does this mean?
Hmm.
So I would love, Amy, for you to kind of take us through as we talk about what is mature masculinity? How do we
Yeah.
access this concept and separate it from the social conditioning?
Yeah. Thank you. So first of all, I want to start with this idea of what is masculinity. So
Mhm.
I think if you ask most people, they're going to give you a very specific definition of all the things, and
Right.
some of the things that are probably going to come up in our exercise. But actually, if you look up the definition of masculinity, what all it says is the traits or attributes of the masculine. And if you look up masculine, it's the traits or attributes of being male. And that's it.
Mhm.
That's where the definition ends. So we
Yeah.
have, as a society, or in different cultures around the world, have actually put a very strict definition
Right.
onto a word that doesn't actually have one. And so
Mhm.
my argument is that masculinity means something different to every person.
Yeah.
So just looking at the people that are male bodied, there's 3.5 billion male bodied people on this planet. So that means there's 3.5 billion different definitions of what
Mhm.
masculinity is. And I think that's on purpose. And that's what I
Yeah.
want to get back to is being able to stand in your power, whatever that is. If it's being strong,
Mhm.
great. If that's not doesn't resonate with you, great. That's awesome. So what I call healthy masculinity is that ability to stand firm in who you are at your core. What I
Mm.
call or the healthy or the mature masculine, what I call the immature masculine is what happens when we put these constraints on people. So when we put these constraints on, and it starts very, very young
Yeah.
as 3 years old, we're telling boys not to cry. And
Mhm.
so, and I see that less and less, but there's still, there are adult men out there who were told at 3 years old that it wasn't okay to cry. So when we
Mhm.
start shutting down the ability to express yourself in the way that is authentic and true to you at such a young age, then we end up with what I call the immature masculine.
Mhm.
I know the word toxic gets thrown around. I really don't like that word. I think that's what a lot of people think of, but I think of it as the immature masculine, which is it got stunted at a point
Mhm.
and your body grew up, but your ability to relate to the world in certain ways was stunted because we
Mhm.
told you to shut everything down at
Mhm.
a pretty young age.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting. I was just having a conversation with my 18-year-old stepson about this topic because I knew it was coming up. And I'm like, well, he got in an argument with his girlfriend about this topic. And what he said was like, it's so hard because people say toxic masculinity, and what
Mhm.
they think is masculinity is toxic,
Yeah.
as opposed to say, no, there is a beautiful, healthy, extremely
Yes.
valuable and necessary part
Yeah.
of masculinity. It's the yang to our yin, right? Like it's just
Mhm.
as much now as the feminine, right?
Yeah.
It's just that there's a certain way that it has gotten skewed in certain cultures, microcultures and macro cultures, where it means something different. And that's what I think you're talking about here, is that that certain strain of perception and expectation that we think of as masculine. So I know we're going to get into specific examples, but I think it's really important to distinguish those two, that there is a type of masculinity that is immature, or some people would say toxic. And what we're trying to find is, what's the heart of masculinity? What is that beautiful center that we want to invite the men in our lives into? And I think that is a part of us as well, right? Like, I think we all should have masculine and feminine energy and balance with each other. So I'm so excited for this. And can you tell me, do we want to dive into the exercise? Is there some context that you want to give around it? How are you thinking about this?
Yeah, no, we can dive in a second. Just want to basically, what the point of this exercise is really to bring awareness. And this is both for however you identify. I think a lot of men, or people that identify as male, are really shocked by this as well. I find this to be very eye-opening for all people, on really how small the box is that we keep men in. So I'd love to dive in.
I love it. Okay, where do we start?
So where we start is, the first question is to everybody in the audience, and please, I guess, put it in the chat, is what are those things that you as men, or if you're not male-bodied, we as women expect? Like, what is a man supposed to be? Everything you are supposed to be, do, and feel as a man in today's society.
And this is, can I use, like, so people who are listening, give your answers. What is a man supposed to be? What is masculinity as you've understood it? So Amy mentioned not allowed to cry. I'll throw out some that I picked up from Nathan, because I was really curious. My stepson, I was like, well, what do you think masculinity means? What does it mean to be masculine? And he said, you have to be the head of your household. So that was the first one he came up with. And you have to, and I said, well, what does that mean? He's like, well, you have to be the financial provider for your family. So it was really interesting. And we took this conversation, but just to kind of prime the pump, I thought those were two really interesting observations that he had inherited from being we're a Christian culture, right? And just seeing how that's been defined within a lot of sects of Christianity, is that idea of being the head of the household. And I'd love to hear from you guys. They need to provide safety. Somebody put in the chat, they need to provide safety.
Are we seeing my screen?
Not yet.
Have we shifted?
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
All right. So I got provide safety, head of household, don't cry. I said that earlier. Okay, what else? What are the things that men are supposed to be, do, or feel as a man?
I think provide financially is the other piece that came through with Nathan when we were chatting, was you're supposed to provide financially.
Okay.
There's just this idea that the not cryingness, but it's like this sense of strength that I tend to think of as masculine, is you have to be the strong one. Maybe the problem solver, maybe. Oh, we got provider and protector is another one that came through. Yep, absolutely. It's interesting. The Greek word for courage is basically masculinity. I'm trying to, but like that idea of courage is inherently a masculine virtue as well. How
are men supposed to feel? Let's get into the feeling piece.
I like that. So give me an example. Men are supposed to feel like what?
How are they supposed to feel? Or like what emotions are men allowed to feel or express?
What emotions are men allowed to feel?
Yeah.
I think probably confidence comes to mind, but from you guys, I'd love to hear.
Yeah.
They have to be without fear. So they're not allowed to experience fear. So fearless. Yep. And yeah, I don't know if you guys have more, throw them at us. What are men allowed to
Yes.
feel? And then be thinking through, what are they not allowed to feel? Because sometimes that can shed light on what it is.
I am just
I think
realizing
men
my
are
computer.
allowed to be happy,
Yes.
right? You're allowed to
Mhm.
kind of have everything under control and be the life of the party. I think that's allowed.
Yes.
Oh, just maybe a lack of emotion, right? So maybe they're
Mhm.
just not allowed. So without emotional needs, somebody shared.
Mhm.
Mhm. So that emotional part,
Mhm.
which you mentioned, kind of female archetypes, that like emotions are distrusted, whether they're feminine or masculine. But like for women, we get put off because we're too emotional. So it would make sense that the flip side is non-emotional.
Mhm.
And I think it was something you had actually mentioned earlier, but I think this idea that anger is an acceptable
Mhm.
emotion. And I really resonated with that. I can see how a lot of people, it's like, oh yeah, you're allowed to be angry. You're even aggressive, especially when it's furthering that protective quality. So
Yeah.
you're allowed to be angry or even aggressive or violent if it's
Mhm.
serving one of these other requirements that we hold them accountable for.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think there's like a certain physicality, and I don't know how to articulate this.
Mhm.
Oh, they have to be tough. They're not allowed to feel grief.
Mhm.
I love that. Thank you guys for
Yes.
sharing. Mm-hmm. Yep.
One thing that comes
Um,
up for me a lot is stoic. I hear
yeah,
that a
of course.
lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like
Anything
the
else?
whole Roman world
Mhm.
advocated stoicism. Yep.
Yeah. Anything
Mm-hmm.
else?
The like that movement of stoicism. So it's
Mhm.
less about what you're feeling, but more you have to control the feelings. So staying in
Yeah.
control of your
Mm.
feelings is
Mhm.
masculine. I like that. That's a good
Oops.
distinction.
Okay, hold on
Mm-hmm.
a second. Here we go. Okay, stop.
That was from Russell. Thanks, Russell.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Okay.
Stay in control. I think that's
Yep.
like masculinity 101, right?
Right? Yeah.
Stay
I love
in
it.
control of yourself, of the situation.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
That's really
Anything else
huge.
coming up?
Have no pain. I like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, almost this, lack of sensitivity. Yep.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder, Amy, has that physicality nature come up with you? Like you're supposed to be the physical representation of these things, like the
Mhm.
physical representation of the provider, the physical representation of the protector. You have to look
Mhm.
the part, I think, in a lot of respects. That's why, like, I don't know where that, I could hypothesize of where that comes from, but I think that's like
Yeah.
physically strong,
Mhm.
physically intimidating, that whole
Mhm.
idea. I like that. Any other comments from you guys about what men should be? This, if you want to be a good masculine person, this is what is acceptable and allowed for you. And if not, then we'll go to the next piece.
I think this is great. This covers a lot of
Yeah.
them. So now my
Mm-hmm.
next question is, what are all the things that you are not allowed to be, do, or feel as a man?
Right. Now we have some of the opposites in here, like without
Mhm.
fear, no pain, no grief.
Mhm.
So do we want to just um
Yeah, we can put
uh,
those out here.
do we want no pain with a W or an O? Which one were you going for with the
Oh,
pain?
okay. Yeah, no, I like that. No, I like that. So you're not allowed to grieve, no pain. Well,
Yeah, I think so yeah,
oh, feel
grieving.
pain or
Yeah,
express
feel
pain.
pain. You're not allowed to feel pain. Yep.
Right. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Now I get it.
Which is
What
ironic given how many like early cultures included pain ceremonies in the
Yeah,
act of becoming a man, right? Which is like,
right?
literally how much
Yeah.
pain can you tolerate?
The physicality that we expect men to have, but in order to do all of those things and have that physique comes from
Mhm.
pain is involved in that. No,
Right?
100%. Yeah, what
Mhm.
else? What else are we not
So,
are do we not allow our men to be, do, or feel?
John said, not allowed to cry or show emotion.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that fear one, you're not allowed to show fear. That's not
Mhm.
acceptable. Or even just not knowing, like ignorance is
Mhm.
unacceptable. I was watching a
Mhm.
survival show and it's a boy and a girl get lost and he like, I know where we're going. This is where we're headed. And they went in the completely wrong direction, but like that was his job. He's not allowed
Mhm.
to not have the answers. Like he has to
Yeah.
know at all times where we're going. So good
And
sense of direction is what we should have put on a green card, right?
right? Yeah. And I'm going to add on
um,
that ignorance or not knowing is men aren't allowed to ask questions.
I love this. Yes.
They're
Hmm.
supposed to know, but not ask any questions.
Right. Somebody said
Yeah.
not allowed to be soft or care too much.
Mhm. I would just say care at all.
Yeah, I think that's probably
Yeah.
true. Yeah, that sense of
Mhm.
detachment.
Mhm.
Always put on a brave face.
Mhm.
Not show indecision. So they're not allowed indecision. Not
Mhm.
allowed to be vulnerable was another one. You guys are
Yes.
giving us so much good stuff. I love this. Um, And I wonder where it says without fear in the green one, do we want to
Mhm.
switch that for brave face as a positive, like what you have to do? And then the fear we'll put in the outside is the negative. That way yeah, there we go. You have to have a brave face. Men are expected to be strong physically and emotionally. Yep,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So you're not allowed to be weak.
Not allowed to be weak. Never allowed to be weak.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Did we put, oh yeah, soft, care, indecision, weakness, grieving. They can't be vulnerable, not allowed to seek help. I think that's right along there with the ask questions.
Mm.
I think you can't seek
Mhm.
help. Hmm. And that comes up a lot. I know friends of mine in the therapy field that women are much more likely to go find a therapist than men are when they
Yes.
feel like they need help. Hmm. Yeah. What else are they not allowed to do or be? Yeah, and I think seek help was what somebody had said.
Oh, did I not? I thought I typed that one. Okay.
Therapy was my version of that,
Yeah. No,
which
but
I
I
think
think
is
it's
good.
both.
It's true.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think it's both. Yeah, because
Hmm.
I mean, that is a huge thing within the mental health space is the stigma that is attached
Hmm.
for men, especially in like the African American community. It's very much frowned upon for men to seek that kind
Hmm.
of help. So I love that.
Hmm.
What else
They
are
can't be
men not
sick.
allowed? Can't be
Yeah.
what?
Can't be
Say that
sick.
again. Sick.
Sick.
Mm-hmm.
Sikck. I
Yep.
can't even spell it. I'm staring right at it. So yeah, I think sickness is like that flip side of weakness. Like I joke, my
Yeah.
husband like hates being babied when he's sick. He's like, just close the door and leave me alone until I'm done. And I'm like, I totally want to be babied when I'm sick. I'm like, bring the tea,
Mm-hmm.
bring the soup. But yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Not allowed to be sick. That's part
Mm-mm.
of that weakness thing, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm also going to put up
Um,
here nurturing.
oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yep. And then in terms of those feelings, we had mentioned what we said you're not allowed to show emotion. So you can
Yeah.
feel it, you're just not allowed to show it. What
Mhm.
else are we not allowed, our men aren't allowed to feel? Or be?
Yeah, be, do, or feel.
Yeah.
What are some things you're not
I-
allowed to do?
Yes. Is it strange? But like, I feel like most of the arts have become off limits
Mhm.
for like heterosexual men,
Mhm.
like dancing and wearing pink, right? Like pink is
Mhm.
totally off limits unless you are like homosexual, which is just so sad because it looks so
Right?
great on so
Oh,
many. right?
Nothing better than a man who wears pink. I love that. Yes.
So dancing, and it's strange because again, like dance, poetry, right? All of these things, writing poetry, that was what men were known for in the Renaissance. Like it was the
Yes.
sign of being a
Yes.
gentleman was that you wrote poetry. And now it's like you have to be emo to do that.
Right.
You're not supposed to do the housework or be a
Mhm.
caretaker or be the homemaker. Ooh, yeah. Whoever shared that one, thank you for that. Because that's true. Like there are certain activities, and this has been true since the hunter-gatherer days, right? Like
Mhm.
there are certain things that are women's jobs, and to do that work of
Yeah.
housework, caretaking, homemaking, right? That's just not, that's going to diminish
Mhm.
your masculinity if somebody catches you doing those things.
Right. So for that
Mm-hmm.
stay-at-home dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Another one that
Yep.
comes up is not allowed to be deep.
Yeah.
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 Anything else? Anything
This
else from
is
the
so
audience?
love to hear if you guys have any other things that men should be. So if it is a should, tell us, we can put it on a green
Yep.
card, or shouldn't be, or can't be, or not allowed to be. Let us know. We'll put on the orange card, but either one.
Yep.
Love it.
Be, do, or
Okay, well, I
feel.
think let's set there. And then if you guys have more that
Yeah.
come up, 'cause, right, I think we had some green cards that showed up when we went into the orange. And as we process this, you might feel other stuff come up. So do keep, this is a more interactive masterclass than we usually have. So do please engage.
Yeah.
But yeah, Amy, what do we do with all this?
Okay, so now what I'd like is I'd like to take like 30 seconds and of silence here, and I want everyone to really just feel this. And if you are male-bodied, how does it feel to live in this box? And if you are not male-bodied or identify as male, then how do you imagine it's like for the men in your life to live in this box every day, all day? So we're just going to take a minute and really just sit with it. And now I'd like you guys to pop in the chat, or Caitlin, if you have any thoughts on how does it feel, or how do you feel like it would feel for the men in your life to have to live in this box? What are
Yeah,
some things that come up? What are some feelings that come up as you feel into oops, I want to, because I want to come back so I can see you. How does it feel to know that the men in your life live in this box? Or as a man, how does it
yeah,
feel to live in this box? Yeah, if you can throw up um, some words, what's coming up for you?
yeah, it's interesting. Heavy, like it just felt like there's this weight of responsibility on my shoulders, and like a part of me was like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, like does my husband live under this mantle every single day? Like that's crazy.
yeah.
um yeah, somebody said it, I don't like it, it feels restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really huge.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to know if you'd add as well is how does it feel in your body? Like what sensations do you feel in your body when you imagine if you're female bodied, or if you think about if you're male bodied living in this box, living in this space? What comes up for you physically?
Feel a lot of it like shoulders and chest, like there's this like weight
Mhm.
on my shoulders and this need to like puff out my chest. Somebody says it feels like a lot of pressure. Like I
Yeah.
can't open up, I can't be real. There's a sense of anxiety that shows
Hmm.
up. And yeah,
Yeah.
as you feel into that anxiety, does it show up in your solar plexus or your lower gut? Does it show up in your back? Does it show up in your neck? Like where does that feeling show up in your body as you're sensing that, as you're living into this? And it's a reality, this reality that a lot of men are in,
Yeah.
that you have to be the one, you have to provide safety, you have to be the head
Yeah.
of the household, You can't cry. You can't be sick. You can't show weakness. You can't show your emotions. You can't cry. You can't seek help. You have to be courageous. You have to be the protector. You have to stay in control. You have to be happy, or at the very least stoic, right? So as you're feeling into this, what's coming up for you guys who are listening? Male bodied or female bodied? I love that distinction. Like as you're feeling into it, what comes up for you guys?
And what you guys have come up with is really great. Heavy, restrictive, anxiety, pressure, tightness.
Yeah, lots of anxiety.
Constrictive, constricting is a word that I hear a lot.
I want to cry, right? Like that's
that's
how I would emotionally release this.
Somebody else in the shoulders carrying all the weight. Yeah. It's a lot of weight to carry. And here's the interesting thing. And please, if there's more words, more things coming up, in my head and chest, it feels like Russell said, lots of pressure, lots of physical pressure. Yeah. And here's the thing is most of what we put around the outside, grieving, crying, being soft, being nurturing, these are not male or female things. Now, some of them are what I would call feminine energy, but we all have a balance of masculine and feminine energy in us. But crying, for example, is not a boy or a girl thing. It's not a man or a woman thing. It's a human thing. It's cathartic. It serves a purpose. One of the things that crying does is it completes the stress cycle, which is one of the things that we struggle with as humans. We live under this constant level of like this midline stress. And crying is one of those things. Dancing is one of those things that gets rid of that gets it out of our body. So if you notice, I don't know if you've ever watched like a nature show, and when there's like, a lion or a panther or leopard or something chasing a group of things around, we'll call them antelope. We'll pick antelope. So there's the fight, flight, or freeze. Is that natural when you are faced, and this is what any animal will do when faced with danger. They'll either fight. If they can't fight, they'll either flee, and if they can't flee, they'll freeze. But if you look at those animals that freeze, like some of them will just lie down and play dead. But if the camera's still rolling, what they do once the danger is gone is they get up and their whole body will shake. And they just, you see this kind of ripple of shaking go through their body, and then they go back. And what that does, that's actually completing the stress cycle. That is getting rid of all of those hormones and things that flooded all the everything that flooded their system when they were faced with this danger. And when the danger was gone, that shaking lets that go. It actually purges all of that stuff that came up during that moment and flushes it all out. And we don't do that as humans, and men especially don't, because they're not allowed to cry, not allowed to, jump around and be silly like women are definitely given permission to do. And the other thing that comes up, which is so crucial and so much the reason why I do this work, is there's going to be a chapter in my book called Happy and Angry. Those are the two emotions that I argue men are allowed to feel. Sadness too, that's one that they may or may not be allowed to feel, but they can identify with. But happy and angry is really, that's kind of it. That's the range of emotions that we allow men to live in. So if we don't give men permission to feel sadness, grief, fear, hurt, pain, disappointment, anxiety, indecision, all of that gets channeled into anger. It's got to go somewhere, because the emotions are happening. But if we don't if it's all being shoved down, and anger is the only way to get what I call uncomfortable emotions. I don't say they're positive or negative. I say we have comfortable emotions and uncomfortable ones. If the only way that you can express those uncomfortable emotions is anger, then that's going to come out in arguably a really, crazy way, violent way. I think it's no accident that we live in as violent a society as we do when we don't give men permission to express the full range of emotions. It's all got to go somewhere. And unfortunately, the place it all generally goes is anger.
Mhm.
So one of the things, exercises that I take men through is when we're talking about anger and unpacking it is when you feel anger, first of all, see if you can stop and feel it in your body. And of course, if it's really intense anger, you're not going to be able to process it in that moment. But the other thing is, maybe if you can't process in the moment, is look at what happened immediately before you felt anger and think about what is an appropriate response to that. Now, if somebody cuts you off on the highway, anger's probably the appropriate emotion. But if you just found out that you didn't get into the school you wanted to, or you didn't get the job that you wanted, or that your significant other didn't pay attention to you in the way that you wanted them to, in those instances, it's probably disappointment. Did you just
Mhm.
drop a can of something on your foot? That's pain or
Yeah.
hurt. And so you can start to, because here's the other thing is we haven't given men the language. I think the scariest
Yeah.
question that, and men, back me up on this. I think the scariest question that a woman can ask a man, and I'm talking in the, heteronormative world, is how do you feel? And
Mm.
oftentimes, and there's two reasons why that question is really, really scary. One is because a lot of times men don't know. If you haven't been given permission to feel and express emotion, you don't have language for it. You don't know what's going on in your body in that moment.
Yep.
And so oftentimes they don't have an answer. And what we'll get is either good, fine, or okay. None
Yeah.
of which are emotions, and all of which will send a woman into a tizzy of, that's not an emotion. Tell me how you feel. So the men have this double whammy of, one, I really don't know how I feel because I don't have language for it. And two, whatever answer I give is not going to be accepted. And so now I know I'm being set up to fail, and this is going to turn into an argument because
It's
I
so
honestly don't
what
know.
you said. It feels like there's so many ways that conversation could go wrong, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
because if
Yes.
your female partner is buying into these cultural
Yes.
norms of masculinity and they say, how do you feel? And you come back with a legitimate answer, I would
Yeah.
argue most women wouldn't know how to
Yeah.
respond if a man
Yes.
came back and he was like, well, there was some disappointment, which had been layered with irritation because earlier in the day I had noticed this that was happening in my body. And as a result, I'm really kind of trying to balance it. Be like, wait, I'm sorry, what?
Yes.
Self-awareness.
Yes.
Even we as women who talk about it all the time still don't always know how
Yes.
to deal with this when it comes from our masculine partners, like our male body partners. Like it's very strange. Like just
Yes.
putting myself in that thing, like I don't know what I would do if my husband just actually, I'm so glad you asked, right? Like,
Right.
let me
Yes.
tell you all of the
Can
list
you
of
help me unpack this? Yes. And that's the thing. When women come to me and say, I want to be with an evolved, mature masculine man, I'm always like, okay, hold on a second. Are you sure? Do you know what that
Mhm.
means?
Yes.
Because when he starts opening up, and especially when we get into that space of vulnerability, then
Ah.
we have a lot of responsibility in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Is this sense of because we're so conditioned, we don't know
Yeah.
how to respond when he actually steps outside this box that we
Right.
created. He steps outside, we don't know what to do with that. And
Mhm.
it's funny, I always hesitate to say this, but most of the time I do, the men are like, yeah, you're right, which is, in a lot of ways, men are fragile creatures. And
Mm.
they, especially in the heterosexual world, they look to us for, I don't want to say validation, but men are going to do whatever it is they think women want. So
Mhm.
what I say to women is, how you respond the first time a man is truly vulnerable with you
Mm.
could, one, determine
Yeah.
whether he's ever vulnerable with you again, but it might determine whether he's ever vulnerable with anyone again. So if we
Right.
behave badly, if we do not, and here's the thing, a man cannot be truly vulnerable and your rock at the same time. So we as
Ooh. Oh,
women,
we need to do some hashtag. I want you to say that again because I think it's important that
yes. So
that we have unacceptable expectations.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
absolutely.
So we are conditioned for our man to be our support. He's our rock. He is
Mhm.
that thing we can fall into whenever we need to. And again, speaking in in a hetero world. So women need to understand that their man cannot both be completely vulnerable with you and your rock, your support at the same time.
Yeah.
We need to provide him support, especially when men are first navigating these, unknown waters of the
Mhm.
full range of emotions.
Yep.
We have to give them grace, and we have to be their support as they navigate
Absolutely.
through this. So
Oh,
there's
yeah.
so many layers to this. So it's not just, okay, men, here, now go do these things. um
Mhm.
we need to, as a society, give men permission. And this is
Mhm.
why I actually do co-ed workshops, so I can educate women as well on how conditioned we are as to what a man
Yeah.
is supposed to be. And then I have men's groups that really, the whole point of that is, and if there's other people that do men's work and men's groups out there, is really to find that support among men.
Mhm.
Because being the lone soldier saying, I'm going to go and be all these things, is difficult in this society. And one of the things we've lost is a sense of brotherhood, that
Mm.
men aren't really real for the most
Yeah.
part with other men.
Yeah.
Men's relationships with other men tend to be very superficial, which brings all that heaviness into the romantic relationship, which puts a lot of
Mhm.
strain on that. So I want men to be able to be real and find support with other men, and take
Mhm.
some of that off of their romantic relationship.
Oof. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
beautiful. I really love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I love this idea, like, yes, we as women traditionally want that place of safety, but then we say, like, well, we want you to be vulnerable. We want you to be in touch. But
Mhm.
recognizing if we open that door, we have to be ready to hold
Yes.
that sacred space, to flip the
Mhm.
role and
Yeah.
really allow we provide the safety and say, yes, this is okay for you to be weak, for you to have to ask for help, for you to cry, for you to
Mhm.
let your guard down, right? In
Yeah.
this, like right now, I don't need you to be perfect. I don't need you to be my rock. I don't need you to be my white knight, right? And like
Mhm.
just recognizing the implications of what does it mean when we say we want an
Yeah.
emotionally sensitive and uh, open, vulnerable man as our
Yeah.
partner. There are big implications for that.
There really are. There really are. And they're not going to be that overnight, because
Yeah,
most men don't know. They don't know the different layers and nuances of emotion that women do. They don't have
right.
language for it. They don't, men are, I basically talk about, men are all in their heads. Like, there's this whole thing below them that, and learning how to feel sensations in your body is something
Okay,
that
so this
men,
is a really
yes,
interesting comment, Amy. Somebody was
yes,
like, well, that
yep,
feels like a ticket to the friend zone. Now, this
yes,
is a really interesting thing because yes,
yes,
like
yes.
we tend to put guys who are sensitive and emotionally open, we're like, those are our friends, and we
Yep.
love talking about our emotions with
Yep.
certain guys, but we would never be sexually attracted to those people, right? So how do we overcome that idea that there's that this more traditionally masculine
Mhm.
person is more
Yep.
sexually attractive, right? I think that's
Yep.
what our chat person was getting at, and I
Yes.
think it's definitely worth addressing.
Yes, 100%. So the first thing I'm going to say is that for sexual attraction to happen, it's really, because I'm also a certified sex and intimacy coach, so I love that this came in, which is this idea that polarity. So
Yes.
basically, what you need within a relationship is polarity in order for there to be attraction. So that
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean that the man has to be the masculine polarity and the woman has to be
Mhm.
the feminine. I know a lot of relationships that work really, really well, where the man is very much in his feminine and the woman is very much in her masculine. So that can work. What we really need is that polarity. And
Yes.
I basically, I view myself as balanced. Like, I'm very comfortable in my masculine from that 20-year corporate career in male dominated industries, male dominated fields. I've
Mhm.
always had really close male friends, but I'm also very comfortable in my feminine. And I
Mhm.
can switch between the two depending on, the situation. So I'm actually attracted to very balanced men who
Mhm.
can yeah, that works really great when we're just hanging out, hanging out and doing friendly things. And then when it gets into the more heated moments, one of us switches into one or the other. And so for me, I'm looking for someone that's actually very balanced and switched. But I want to bring up the distinction between having access to your emotions, the capability of being vulnerable, and emotional dumping. So I'm not, so we're not talking about men just walking around all day going, I'm sad, or all these things are happening to me. It's about balance. It's about being, what it is it's about being true to yourself. So one of the things I want to say, which I didn't before, which is for a small percentage of men, this box that we created is actually their natural state of being. So for some men, that's going to feel really, really comfortable. And I've met one or two in the course of doing this work. What I'm trying to get at is, what are those things in the box that don't resonate with you? And maybe let those go. And what are some of the things outside the box that do resonate with you? That is who I am as a human and as a man. And incorporate those into your lives. So it's about also having emotional agency of and an internal resource. So maybe as you're starting this path, you're going to need a little bit more support in how to feel these things and how it shows up and navigating this space of emotion. But ultimately, what my goal is for you as a man to be comfortable in whatever is natural to you, which includes some things in the box and some things outside the box, and that you're solid in who you are. And for that, there is going to be someone that matches that in that polarity. Yeah.
And the other thing I'm thinking through, just from a purely practical standpoint, is like this level of trust and vulnerability and openness has to be earned, right? Like all trust does, right? So this is probably not a first date conversation. Right? For my husband and I, who have been in committed, like exclusive monogamous relationship for 12 years, and that's how we plan on it staying, right? Perfect box for us to explore this tension. And he knows he's safe. I know I'm safe. And that physical connection has always been there and always will be there, right? So I think that there's also, it's worth taking context into consideration for this thing.
Yes. Yes.
I love it. And we've got another question from Troy. Does
No
woman follow man, or does man follow woman? What is the original design of the purpose of man and women? How do roles play and align with one another? This is a fantastic question, Troy.
Yeah.
Amy, I'm going to let you touch this because this is so charged. I love it.
I'm going to say, as one of my favorite answers is, it depends. In some situations, women follow men, and in others, men follow women. So it's this idea of being comfortable with the role that you want to play. I'm going to speak in relationship here. I hear a lot of things like, a woman is the artwork and the man is the frame. And I don't want to, I try to stay away from generalizations because, as people are waking up in this transformational space and people learning about masculine and feminine energy, I get these statements of like, all women want to sink into it. And I'm like, hold on, time out. Not all. And I want, what I want is for people to find out who they are at their core. And that's why why it's the warrior core. It's that core of the man, which is going to be different for every man. So the original design and purpose of men and women, that's a really esoteric question that I'm not sure, we have time for in this, but I think that here's the thing is one of the things that they're finding now is that most of the anthropological record was skewed and viewed through our current definitions of male and female roles. What they're finding now, and when they go back and look at the archaeological and anthropological record, is that when we were hunting and gathering societies, there were actually a lot of female hunters. There in Vikings, there were a lot of female warriors. So these traditional roles that we have been that we've said have existed throughout human existence is actually not true. And while there are some, I think there's a lot of ways that men are better suited for certain things in general.
Mhm.
Most men, if you look at the plethora of men, most men are physically stronger than women.
Mhm.
Most men have the ability to singularly focus on something to the exclusion of everything else, which drives a
Mhm.
lot of women crazy. And we have the capacity to multitask, which I
Mhm.
think does come from our hunting and gathering days,
Mhm.
where I mean, certainly the women who had small children and were breastfeeding or pregnant were not out on the hunt.
Mhm.
So when you are, caring for children and keeping the community going, we have to be able to multitask. Whereas
Yeah.
when you're on a hunt, you have to be able to squat in a
You
bush
get
for 8
distracted, you're gonna
hours
miss.
and focus on that one thing. So I think in
Yep.
some ways there are traits. And here's the thing about my work. I'm not looking to turn men into women. Absolutely
Mhm.
not. I love men, but I want men to have access to those things that makes them human, that we have
Mhm.
given men, that we have denied men for centuries, if not millennia.
Mhm.
And there is a way to strike that balance. And it might be that right out of the gates, it might be a little, but you'll find your footing because, we're
Mhm.
basically learning something that, oh, wrong side. This is opposite. It always screws me up. Um, but we're basically we're teaching men things that should have been taught when they were, a toddler or early childhood. So it's a
And that's
relearning
exactly
process.
where I feel like this all starts to crystallize for me personally and probably for other
Mhm.
parents is I have sons to raise, right?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do I model? How do I provide that safe space for them
Yeah.
to navigate this really intense world? And how do I teach those traditionally masculine ideas of courage and resiliency and self-sufficiently, like providing for oneself and for others, to have
Yeah.
that strength of core to provide safety for others, but also to be in touch with your emotions, to be
Yeah.
self aware, to give yourself permission to express yourself fully, right? Like this is this is human
Yeah.
work, guys.
Yes.
This is not for men or for women. This is what Amy is saying. Is like this is
Yeah.
the work of what it means to be an awakened, fully expressed human being.
Yeah.
And it's just, we've given I think what I'm hearing from you, Amy, is we've given women permission to question the paradigm and chart their own
Mhm.
course. What you want to do is
Yes.
give men permission to do the same thing, question the
Yes.
paradigm, and chart your course.
Yes, yes. And you brought up an interesting thing about, whether you're in a relationship or not. I think if you're in relationship, then and with a supportive partner, then you can start to navigate like, hey, can you help me out here? Can you help me
Mhm.
navigate this? When I get angry, ask me, are you really angry or is there something else going on? Like what's,
Yeah.
and start to learn that that level of expression. And if you're not
Mhm.
in a relationship, there's men's groups springing up everywhere. And like I said, I have some too. You can reach out to me,
Yeah.
where men are discovering how to navigate this in community with other men, where you're
Mhm.
fully supported and you have permission
Yes.
and you're kind of all in it together. And that's one of the things that's really that I love about doing this work is when seeing men admit something and then
Mhm.
all the other men going, yeah, yep, me too. And that
Mhm.
look of like, oh, really? Like, I'm not the only one. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we make men islands. And,
Mhm.
so there's this sense of, I'm the only one. Nobody's going to understand me. They're going to judge me. And then you say it and everybody's like, oh yeah, yeah, me
Mhm.
too. And
Mhm.
there's so much healing just in that of
Absolutely.
knowing that you're not alone and knowing you've got this community around you that sees you and
Mhm.
understands what you're going through and what you're coming from. Yeah.
I love this. So we have been broadcasting across many different social media channels. If you guys would like to come and plug in with us, we're going to move this to a workshop model and actually have more engagement and talk about this in AirMeet. We're going to drop the AirMeet link in the comments so you guys can join us over on the AirMeet side and ask questions of Amy, bring up questions. Troy had a great one. We would love to hear from the rest of you guys. What comes up as we're talking about these different topics and how does this apply in your everyday life? Because this is right 50-50. You're either coming down on one side or the
Yes.
other, but this relates to literally every single human being. So come join us in Air Meet. And I would love to, Amy, how can people find you? How can they get plugged into your workshops? How can they go deeper with you?
Yeah, I was just going to share my screen with all my contact
Yeah.
information. I don't know if am I sharing?
I'm sure we can get that pulled up for you once we get it shared. And then, Tobin, can you see it on your end yet?
Hold on, share. It's not, cancel. All right, it's not coming up.
Try that again.
Let
Well,
me try
I will
that again.
say you can go to her website at
Yes.
thewarriorcore.com,
Yes. Here we go.
TheWarriorCore.com.
There we go.
So that'll be a great way for you to find her and get plugged in. And then Amy at thewarriorcore.com is a great way to get set up with her. Amy, I love this. And then in general, like, is that the best place to just send you an email if they're interested in learning more?
Yes, yes. Or go to go to my website. I apologize. Well, not apologize. I had a death in the family, and so I was kind of keeping everything on hold until I knew when service and stuff are going to be. So I am actually going to be in the next day or two creating my calendar of workshops and stuff.
Okay.
But if I have upcoming workshops and men's groups and retreats. So yeah, you can email me. You can go to my website. All of it will be there. Just give me a day or two.
Love this. I love
Yes.
this. All right. Any last words, remarks, encouragements, or tips that our listeners can take away with? What's one thing you want them to remember?
Yeah. Just that I guess for the men, give yourself grace, and for the women, give your men grace. This is new. The conditioning is so pervasive that most people don't even realize how conditioned we are. And and so this is a new thing. So give yourself grace, go slow. It's, for a lot of people, just seeing that box is like, wow, I had no idea. So, just like anything else, it's it's going to take time. It's going to take time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And welcome
And
to
do we have the Air Meet link? Oh, we just shared it. Thanks so much. All right. So join over in the Troy says self-manifestation is the greatest gift a man or woman can give self and the world. I think that's a beautiful way to end. So,
I love that. Love
all
that.
Right. So we're going to go over into workshop mode over in Air Meet. Let me grab that for you, Amy. So you've got it. And then we'll come over for these guys who are already in Air Meet. You guys are watching us there, but we're going to have to make a quick switch. And then we'll see you on the other side.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.